We've talked about a lot of different things in the past, but I want to talk about expecting the unexpected. They say that everybody is either in the middle of a bad time in life, just leaving a bad time in life, or about to go into a bad time in life. They often talk about this when they're talking about, be careful around people because they're in one of those three phases. The other part is you never know what's going to happen. Even if you're in a bad time right now, it could get worse. So bad times can layer on top of each other. So the idea is that we need to prepare for the unexpected coming. We need to expect that the unexpected will happen. And that's something that a lot of people don't like to do. They don't like to hear about their demise. They don't like to hear about catastrophes, that the life they've been living could change dramatically. It's just not comfortable. But we need to prepare for it nonetheless. I like to tell people that the reason why we get good with money is not to get good with money. The reason to get good with money is to get money off the table so we can focus on what's important. And these unexpected things in life really do distract us from what's important. And so the whole point of preparing is to make it so that when they happen, and they will, that it doesn't distract us from what's important in life. So I talked about our financial foundation. That's in part to help prepare for the unexpected. You've got the emergency fund, where you'll have sufficient funds to get through 3, 6, 9 months with no income. So that's absolutely something to handle unexpected things happening. You may not be necessarily losing income, but it allows you to take things that would distract you and put them aside and say, nah, it's taken care of. Another thing is the emergency preparation fund. When you don't have the necessities and you can't get them, that's distracting. And so having enough food and supplies on hand to get you through a few weeks when you can't get stuff for whatever reason, natural or otherwise, that helps minimize distractions from what's important. I mentioned earlier about how people like to think that things keep going like they're going. And a lot of times people think, well, my job is going to go forever. I'm going to always have income. The downside is that we make decisions based on that. So when people get their, they'll go and they'll buy a house, for instance. And when they buy the house, like, yeah, I can make the payments. The mortgage company said they'll lend me this much. They say I qualify for that much. So I'm gonna take out a loan for that much. And then things happen. Working recently with a couple where they bought a house that was a good portion of his income. And there's a wonderful house, and they bought it because the mortgage company said they could do it. And then it was eating a good chunk of their income. It meant it was really hard to pay it down, let alone do anything else. So that's great as long as your income continues. Well, over time, economies change, and not only did he lose his job, but the house also went down in value. Luckily, what they did was they started aggressively figuring out ways to pay down their mortgage. And so what would have been a catastrophe of a house that's upside down and no income turned into bigger than expected, bigger than you'd want distraction, but it wasn't a catastrophe because they can sell their house and they can get some money out of that in that situation. So that brings up a couple of things. One is when people make decisions, they don't think about, well, my income situation could change dramatically. Another thing, health situation can change dramatically. That's why we have health insurance. Another thing is, the value of the things that we have could drop dramatically. A lot of people, they count on for instance, the stock market, that it will go up continually at a, depending on who you talk to, they'll say 6, 8, 10, maybe 12%. And there are some famous gurus that go around saying, well, if the market gets 12% and you can take out 8%, live off of that, and you'll still have growth. Downside is it's not simple math like that. It sounds good, but again, you're counting on the market, one, doing what it's done before, which we don't know that it will, and two, that's an oversimplification in that markets go up and down. Even if it did what it's done in the past, it won't necessarily do that. Well, if it does what it done in the past, the downturns happening at the wrong time can dramatically impact what's happening. And so people just don't count on that happening. It's often said that, well, risk is something that people don't like to think about and they don't take into account. And it's something that if you want to have a life filled with purpose, then you need to make sure that you can take these distractions that are going to happen on a regular basis and minimize them. So that means insuring yourself. That means building up your financial foundation, building up your wealth foundation. We talked about health a little bit. Wealth foundation is to build up your giant emergency fund for the time when you cannot provide for your, you cannot actively produce income. So that typically happens a little bit later in life. So that's why you have time to build it up. But people think, oh, it's for retirement. Well, I'm just never going to retire. Well, you may be forced to because of your health. Or I've got till 75 or 72 or 70 or whatever they decide, 65. Maybe, you don't know. Your health may degrade sooner than that. And so the whole point is to start putting things in place now, building the habits, setting yourself up so that regardless of what happens, we start with, say, a baby emergency fund of $1,000 or $1,500, right? Just something to kind of smooth out the little bumps that happen, but then build it up to 3 to 6 to 9 months to 12 months of expenses so that you kind of can glide over some of those bigger things, right? And then avoiding debt, because debt just adds risk to your life. Give you an example from my life. We bought a house and it was fantastic until it wasn't. Until we realized that we needed to move. And when we sold the house, we actually had to pay out of pocket to sell the house because we paid off the second mortgage. So we had 20% down on the house, but the values in the neighborhood went down so fast that we still paid tens of thousands of dollars just to sell the house. So normally when you sell a house, hey, we got money out. No, I had to write a check to transfer the title to someone else. Yeah, that kind of stuff happens. And it happens all over the place at different times in different locations. So that's the kind of thing that we want to avoid, are those unexpected things. Now, what's even worse than risk is luck. A lot of people, they'll get lucky. It's like, hey, I bought this property and I sold it and I made a lot of money. And what's even worse is if they do it twice in a row. And if they don't know what they're doing, they don't know how to manage risk, then they happen to hit an upswing, or the stock market. They hit some wild times and they get massive amounts, like, hey, I'm a genius. I'm making tons of money, and they get lucky. And if they get lucky too many times, then it starts solidifying into, I know what I'm doing. And then when those downsides hit, when the unexpected happens, they're completely wiped out and they're completely demoralized because they thought they knew what they were doing. I'll give you an example. There was an investment that we were in where we were purchasing items overseas, shipping them here, and selling them for 25% more than what we purchased in shipping, made 25% gross on it. So, and that took about 3 months to do that. So the person who was brokering the deals and handling all that got 5%, and we'd get 20% for for putting our money up. And that was fantastic. We're making money hand over fist. I was getting into debt. That was a bad idea. It increased our risk. And then something bad happened. It all fell apart and we didn't have the investment income. In fact, we lost a good chunk of that money and we had debt on the other side, which completely destroyed us for several years. So that's the kind of thing. People get into debt assuming that things are going to continue as they currently are, but there's no guarantee of that. And so minimizing the debt or eliminating the debt altogether reduces the risk in your life so that you can focus on what's important. Not only that, it frees up a lot of cash flow. And that's really where you eliminate the risk is by having significant amounts of control over the cash flow coming into your life. So make sure you're insured. Make sure you're got your emergency fund, your emergency preparation fund. Make sure you're building your wealth foundation and minimize and eliminate debt as fast as possible. And as you do that, you'll learn the skills and the habits necessary to master your money. And while you do that, you can get money off the table and you don't have to worry about it anymore. And you can focus on what's important.